Welcome. Hi to another episode of episode 14, I think, of Property Avenue WA. I better check this in future. He's Oscar D'Souza. I'm Tony Viner, and we work on doing Property Avenue WA as your avenue to things property in West Australia. So we welcome you with your questions. We welcome your opinions. Tonight we've got a range of topics that OD and I are going to have a chat about. But we encourage you to send us questions, and it may not be something we're talking about now. It may be something that you have something on your mind and you want to talk about. But we really would enjoy the fact that you send us some messages and send us some hellos. We're going to go tonight. We intend to have a look at some stats Oscar's got with regard to real estate and what's happened in the last week or so. And we're also going to check on the Midwest region regarding rental side of things. We'll also have a chat about some things associated with renovations, and maybe more the fact of we've been talking about building, but what about the renovation? Jobkeeper and Job-seeker is a big thing, and we're going to discuss that and where that, with the impact that's having on that may have on the property world here in WA. Older home buyers, I read an article during the week that the lending criteria, there's been a bit of a shift with certainly with one of the banks about that, what that may or may not look like. And also, interestingly, there was a couple of articles, I think, OD, you and I are ahead of our time, but there was a couple of articles there that were along the lines of what we'd already discussed last week, so we'll touch base on those. And we've got a couple of if questions that we might just put to Oscar and I that just for a bit of fun. So enjoy, and we welcome you to OD. How was the week?
Mate, good. Really good week. Life is pretty busy at the moment. Work's pretty busy, and the real estate market is continues to be really busy through WA. Look, everyone always wants to know. It's always a very common question. How's the market? So I may as well just get into that and talk about a couple of the stats and what that means. So just quickly. So week ending last Friday, the number of sales in Perth across the Perth metropolitan area was 799 sales, so one short of 800. 4 weeks ago, it was 973. And if you recall, TV, a normal market that we see in Perth when things are reasonable, it's normally 500 or 500 to 600 sales throughout the metropolitan area. So 799 last week, which is high. 4 weeks ago, as I said, 973, and 12 months ago, the same week, 12 months ago, was 494 sales. So that gives you a bit of an idea as to how strong the market is that we've got. 12 months ago was a bit close to what we consider normal, but this rebound that we've had in sales activity since post-COVID has been phenomenal, absolutely phenomenal in the sheer volume of sales. Stock, there's currently 5,673 houses available through Perth. It wasn't long ago, and when I say that, I'm saying 6 months or 8 months ago, it was well north of 15,000 properties available. So right now, stock is low, 5,673 houses. The total, which includes units and blocks of land, is about 10,500 listings, but again, that's still very low. And 12 months ago, 14,814 listings throughout Perth. Again, houses, units and land, as compared to 10,500 as at right now. So that's a solid 30%, 30 to 35% drop in supply. And as we all know, and we touched on last week, when the supply isn't there, but demand is, and we know demand is there by what's happening week by week, that's going to place an upward pressure on pricing. And I reckon we're already starting to see some signs of that with multiple offers coming in on just about all properties that hit the market. Further supporting evidence for that is the days on market. So how long it takes from the date that an ad goes up to the time that the property goes under offer. 12 months ago, we were looking at 60, 62 days as an average across Perth, and that has dropped to 45 days on average. That 45 days actually...
So is that, what's that over the last couple of months, is it?
No, 12 months. So,
Yep.
days. So it used to take about 2 months or so to get an accepted offer on your property if you had it on the market, and now it's dropped down to about 6 weeks or 45 days. That data, though, just whilst I'm going through that, and given the level of market activity that I know that's out there, I'm sure that next time that data is calculated, it's going to be quite a bit south of 45 days, because there are so many properties that are going under offer after the first week's home open, and there's multiple offers coming in on several properties as well. So the next time that data comes out as to days on market as an average, I'm sure we're going to see it further south than 45 days.
Mate, what, you know, like, obviously when COVID sort of hit us and we hit this world of unknown in March, and then we sort of went our way into April, and then of course there was that concern with, and obviously a lot of it was driven by media and commentary which was focused on eastern states more than WA. But what's driving the enthusiasm, considering you know, we don't have, people can't come to Australia at the present time, for that matter, can't come to WA, let alone eastern states that can't come to WA. What's driving the enthusiasm? Because this is quite remarkable, really, considering what people were. I mean, I know there's a stimulus package, but I'm seeing, even in my office and my own inquiries, as you know, I do a lot of after hours work, a lot of consulting work. It's really quite intriguing as to what's been going on, particularly the last month or two.
3 or 4 components, I think, to TV. A big component is the unknown component, and that is what is it? I think there's a level of unknown component that we can't say it's only interest rates. We can't say it's only stimulus. There's an unknown component that 6 months ago, even at the start of the year, we never would have predicted we'd have this volume of sales, because we were back at normal 500 to 600 a week, and now we've been above 800 for probably 4 consecutive weeks. So interest rates, definitely. There's no question that money is so cheap, and lending conditions have never been better, I think, than what they are now. So that's really good. There were certainly lots of people that didn't get out and buy their homes for 2 or 3 months during the COVID period when home opens and everything weren't around. And obviously there was a lot of uncertainty in the economy as well. So all those people that didn't buy for 2 to 3 months, now COVID's passed and Australia's done well, WA's done even better than that. And so now we're actually seeing all those people that were going to buy in May, June, July are now joined by the buyers of March, April and May, you know, so they're all coming at once. So, look, it's a very unusual period in our real estate market that anyone that's been around for a while, we've never seen the 6 months that we've had, and never would have predicted that either. So as we approach the end of the year, maybe there'll be some concrete reasons as to why, but there definitely is an unknown factor in there. And it's there was another article you're making mention about, you know, what's going on, but there was something else I read somewhere on the line where, you know, the concern is supply with regard to land is concerned, and the developers and whatever are looking at trying to, although there's only a small window, we've only basically got 6 months for this stimulus package with regard to building. What position with you know, stock, and how quickly can the developers get some of the stock they may have, because this was not expected, and certainly the stimulus package is driving that when it comes to vacant land. But it's a really interesting time as to where that heads. The other thing as well, TV, I think, is that aside from the bits that we've mentioned, the investor market at the moment, or rather the rental market, is so super strong at the moment. We're still in leasing 1,000 rentals a week, and there's only 4,000 or 4,500 available across the entire Perth metro area. So, and that's changed dramatically over the last 12 months as well. So for those people that obviously are using real estate or property as their vehicle for investment, we all know the last 10 years have not been great in terms of the value of these properties not going in the direction that we like them to go. But we also know for the 4 to 5 decades prior to the last, real estate's always been a very sound, solid and pretty safe investment, hence the name safe as houses. So people are thinking that, oh, look, at some point in time, it's got to revert to being a really safe and profitable, stable investment long term. And why would that not be now? Because we know that the rental market's really strong. So if you've got investment properties, they really shouldn't be sitting there vacant. There's lots of people after them, so you should be able to lease them quite quickly. And we're probably seeing a bit of rental growth in that as well. So if I'm an investor and I'm trying to work out where's the best bet for my money, and property has historically been a pretty safe bet, I'd be looking around for a good investment property, because I know that the rental market or the tenants that are going to be after that investment property is very high in demand at the moment. So there's also the investor market that then has to compete with the owner-occupier market that are loving the low interest rates environment. So there's a few bits to it, and I think all in all, like when you add all those things together, it probably makes sense why we've got this really, really high level of activity. Just on the rental market, because I said that I'll make a comment about the Midwest and Geraldton in particular. Yep. So I obviously had a little property management business up in Geraldton, and I did some property valuation work up there as well. But specifically with the rental business, when I first got into it, our normal market had 160 to 180 rental properties available through all of Geraldton at any one time. And that's when I had first started. And I remember talking to new owners that were coming on, and I'd quote that as a statistic. But then at some point in time, we went up to 250. Then I saw it go up to 290 or 300 properties. And then at its peak, it got to between 400 and 420 properties. And we had a massive oversupply. We almost couldn't give these properties away, even when we dropped rents. So we went from 160 to 180 right up to 400. The rental market since, and even when I left Geraldton about 3 years ago, there was still in the high threes, around 400 properties through suburban Geraldton. As at right now, literally an hour ago, there's 107 properties available through suburban Geraldton. So that's better than the normal market conditions that I had seen. And in fact, it's the best rental market for an investor in Geraldton that I've ever known any time in the last decade, because the demand over there is just so high. I don't have any stats for the sales volumes that's been happening in Geraldton, but I have seen what the active reps are doing, and they're super, super busy. So if I was an investor in Geraldton, and I think that Geraldton's got some characteristics that represent a good investor market, looking at the number of properties that are available and the number of people that are after those properties, it would make for a good investment from an ongoing rental point of view.
Yep. Interesting. Hey, the other thing I may mention about is, and look, while we mention it, a couple of our regulars have, Laura and JC, Justin Collins, has just made mention that our link dropped out for a little while. I apologise if that was the case. Everything looked good from our end, but obviously we're relying on you. But we're also relying on you when it comes to questions, and you've got any opinions. It may not necessarily be what we're talking about right now. You may have some questions about property in WA. You may have a question about sales. You may have a question about something that you're doing. If we don't have the answers here and now, we'll certainly ensure we try and follow that up. But we encourage you to be a part, be it on Facebook, or Champion Bay Settlements Facebook page, or we've now got Property Avenue WA has now got its own YouTube channel, so you can go in there and yeah, we've got to do a bit of work on it though. We've got to dress it up. We've got to get our photos organised, and we'll be back. But yep, so we're there. You can so you can get access to us, and we are working. It gets better. we're working on a podcast. So if you don't want to see our faces and you just want to hear our beautiful voices, then you can, we could do that. We're working towards a podcast so you can listen to us via audio and not necessarily have to sit here and watch and listen. So we're developing things as we go. Hey, listen, one of the other things that I was intrigued about, renovations. There's been a lot about building and the stimulus package, but the stimulus packages that have been introduced are not just for building new homes, but also for renovations. Now, there are some rules and regulations associated with that, the stimulus package and renovating. But where do you see that happening? I mean, logically, I would imagine old homes particularly are an opportunity. So people perhaps looking for, I read an article somewhere where it may be the ideal opportunity to buy the worst home in the best street or the best suburb, and then utilising this stimulus package to do some renovations and get yourself a masterpiece in a great suburb in a great street. What are you seeing from that angle? Have you got any comment on that?
Yeah, absolutely. Look, it's as popular as ever now. I don't know that the government stimulus so far as renovations has provided any major spark in terms of people being motivated for renovations. I think it's a lot more directed towards new builds. And there is that, I'm testing my memory, but I'm pretty sure there is that $150,000 minimum value of the construction. So, when people think about renovations or the other term being refurbishments, sometimes you're talking 50 grand for a kitchen and bathroom makeover. Sometimes you're talking 100, maybe 120, but you have to go quite significant to get to 150. But then it's also got to make commercial sense to spend 150 or maybe 150 to 200,000, because if you go spending 150 to 200,000 on doing a renovation, but the added value, so if you went to sell the property at some point in time, if the added value only really is, I don't know, somewhere between 50 and 100,000, there is that commercial component where you'd have to work out whether, well, is it worth doing? Is it worth doing? And how long do you plan to stay there as well? This renovation idea, though, often is the foot in the door to many suburbs, and the ones that are closer to the city. Because if you don't look at this renovation angle, you simply won't be able to get into the suburb because the land's just too expensive and there's no additional land supply. So sometimes it might mean that you need to come along and buy a property that might be pretty close to land value, and then it's up to you as to whether you push it over and start again, or whether you use the existing structure of the house and you renovate that, basically. It's a big consideration, though, obviously, for people that are looking at either upsizing or downsizing from their current properties, because if they go to sell their property so that they can make a move whichever way they're going to go, there's all the different costs that are associated not just with selling their property, but then obviously buying the new property as well. And so they've got to factor in, if you're going to sell your property, maybe that might cost you 20 or 30 grand. But then when you go to buy one, mostly related to stamp duty, maybe you might end up spending another, 20 or 30 grand. And suddenly you've spent 50,000 and you haven't really got too much for it, because obviously that doesn't include the cost of the new property as well. So sometimes people sit there and go, well, instead of just burning that 50 grand to change the house over, why don't we just look at maybe spending 100, or maybe we'll spend a bit more and make our house what it is that we're actually looking to buy. So it might be an extra bedroom, might be a games room, might be a pool, or it might be an internal makeover. But it's a big consideration for people before making the move to actually change location or look for the new property. It's whether or not it makes sense just to do the work on your existing property and not burn that 50 grand in exit costs or agent fees. And then on the other side is stamp duty as well.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it was interesting too that some of the suburbs, that one of the articles that was might have been on the weekend, and they mentioned they were obviously areas that also got bigger blocks, so it gives them opportunity to expand on the home and maybe not necessarily overcapitalising, but at the same time taking the opportunity to, rather than sell and then go and buy elsewhere, to be able to renovate and extend on some of these areas which have got bigger blocks compared to, we had Casey Green on a few weeks back, and with regard to he was talking about how small the blocks are now getting, as we all know. But some of these older suburbs, whereby even your Dalkeiths, I know that's not necessarily everyone's opportunity to buy in an area like that, but some of these suburbs like Guildford, for example, and even your regional areas where the bigger blocks are, it gives people an opportunity, as much as what you're saying about overcapitalising, the renovation gives an opportunity for some areas for people to expand on perhaps a smaller house they've got at the moment. So there's some flexibility there, but it's what it gets back to what you're talking about, ensuring that you're not overcapitalising. That's a big you really got to make sure of that.
That's right, and that normally comes into the equation for just about all people. But there is that that section of the market that aren't really too fussed about that, because if they're looking at spending whatever level of capital expense, but they see a life in that property for the next 20 years, 15 or 20 years, they're not really too fussed about overcapitalising, because they're pretty confident that the property value or the land value will go up. The only time that you're really going to overcapitalise is when you've spent the money, but then you need to sell the property and you're not going to get your money back. But if you have spent the money and over a longer period of time, the chances are you will get your money back, then you're not really at risk of overcapitalising.
Hey, listen, before I go any further, someone's actually come back and said, good viewpoint, Oscar, on the renovations. Someone's actually complimented you with regard to that. So, mate, take a tick. Obviously, people think you're on the mark. Hey, just
really often that I get compliments, TV.
I know.
I mean,
I'd let you know. I just say Justin Collins, who's actually now, how innovative is he? He's driving back from Perth because he rang me before we came to air, and Justin he's listening to us. Even though we only go via live stream, he's actually got an audio, so he's actually listening to our conversation. Obviously, he can't watch us while he's driving. So, hey, see, there's a way around everything, you know. Hey, one thing that's been
sorry, mate, can I jump in? I want to jump in because we were talking about compliments, and I you know that I suffer from a bit of low self-esteem from time to time, and I was talking about the fact that JC made a compliment to me, so thanks for that, mate. Keep your eyes on the road. But and as I said, it's not too often that I get a compliment, mate. You said something to me before we got on air. You made a return to golf. We're moving away from property. You made a return to golf, and you said something to me. Can you just quickly run, and for the benefit of those people?
Well, all I'll say is, for those that aren't aware, I love my golf, and I haven't played golf for nearly 10 months. And I worked most of the weekends, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go out and have a swing and just see what happens. And I played 9 holes at the Geraldton Golf Club because I'm up in Geraldton at the moment, sorting out a few things for my dear old mum. And I was so close. My dear old dad loved rubbing it in that he got a hole in one, as does my brother. And even though they claim that I'm the lowest handicapper in the family, I haven't got a hole in one. And I was so close on Sunday, but no chocolates.
So I believe the terminology that you said to me off air was, I almost got a hole in one.
That's pretty much it, yes. I did get excited.
It's almost got a hole in one, mate. It's you either did get a hole in one or you didn't.
I did.
Almost got a hole in one.
I did. I was excited. I haven't had a hit for a long time, and I got excited. Admittedly, anyway, let's not go on about me. I didn't get it, so let's just move on. Okay, the topic of the week, other than my golf, the topic of the week, which has been in every bit of TV, papers, and every other document, I'm sure, JobKeeper and Job-seeker. It's been a change. There's been a lot happening. Obviously, we're not experts in that area, but what we're on about is property. Come September, or come October, really, there's going to be changes, and the changes are quite significant. I mean, my focus, for example, as a business owner, is I don't want to be relying on JobKeeper. I want to be ensuring that my business is back on track, and we're doing what we need to do and what we normally do. Like, go back to normal is basically the guts of it. But there's been a lot of talk about it, and there's a lot of hoo-ha about it. And I watched the project last night, and they were sort of interviewing the treasurer about it all, and had a number of questions. Why reduce it? Why not? But more importantly, what's your thoughts and how do you see it with regard to the impact on our property market here in WA?
Yeah, well, TV, in the first instance, I've got nothing but applause for the federal government in coming up with the initial package that they have done in the time that they had to do it, the benefit that it's been to the economy, and now what it is that they've reviewed post 30th of September for the changes as well. So I think it has been an amazing lifeline to the economy to soften the blow of a lot of pain that's out there. I think that they absolutely needed to make some changes to it to ensure that it's going to those that most need it. And there's going to be some new reporting that requires those that need it to show that they need it on an ongoing basis. So that's not been the case for the first 6 months of the package. If you qualified, you qualified, and yes, you needed to check in with your your revenues or whatever, but it wasn't an ongoing qualification that you needed to. Once you qualified, you qualified. But now what they're doing post-September is saying that we're going to check in on a month-by-month basis. And once you are above the threshold in terms of your revenue, then you're back out on your own. So, and as Scott Morrison said yesterday, when we get to that point, or each individual business gets to that point, it's actually a good day. So it's not a time where we sit there and go, and this is just my personal view, it's not a time where we sit there and go, oh no, we're losing something. Well, the reality is it's fantastic that your business has been able to recover to the point, or almost to the point prior to the COVID hitting. And that's obviously got to be a really, really good thing. There's some businesses that won't be at that point, and hence they're still going to get the benefits as well. So far as the real estate market, I think it's a really, really good thing, because with the existing JobKeeper, job seeker, I guess, but in particular the JobKeeper, I think that's provided a bit of confidence, and I think we see a bit of that in our current real estate market as well. And now knowing that it doesn't fall off a cliff at the end of September, and it will continue in some form, I think, again, it now provides confidence or certainty as to what will happen for the next 6 months after September, and that will affect people's confidence in making real estate decisions as well. So if anything, I just see that as a positive, the changes to the JobKeeper. That said, there will be some pretty hard business decisions made at the end of September which I think is going to result in an increase in unemployment. And when there's an increase in unemployment, that affects people's ability to either take new loans on properties or to pay existing mortgages. And if that is the case, if unemployment rises, typically I think we'll see more properties come onto the market, and then it's just about, well, how many buyers are out there now for an increase in supply. So I reckon we'll see an increase in supply from September onwards.
That quickly?
Sorry?
That quickly, you think?
Yeah, I think so. I think
a bit of a lag before that happens?
No, I reckon we'll probably see it, and I think some people might even be, thinking about that just over the next 2 to 3 months about what their intentions are. So I don't think it's going to be a huge spike, but what I'm saying is for the last few months, we've just seen our supply plummet. So I think that we'll actually see some decisions where people decide that it is now time to sell, and so I think we'll actually see. Well, I don't want to use the term spike because it implies something that's happening quite quickly, but I think we might actually see the supply curve swing around the other way, where we will see a bit of an increase in supply.
Yeah. Because the other thing is, it's not so much, I mean, I don't deny the fact it assured that my staff had a job for a couple of months, because in our case, as you know, in the settlement game, we can get the work in today, but our income is not until that job's finished in 7, 8, 9 weeks' time, 10 weeks' time.
Absolutely.
So in our case, when things were sort of dropped off the cliff in March and April, it didn't impact on us so much with regard to our income, because we were already having, our cash flow wasn't being impacted, because the work we were doing in those times was our work from January, February. But of course, come June, July, probably not July, but more so May, June, that was our March and April work. So JobKeeper was very, very integral in our profession. And I suppose probably similar situation with real estate agents, because they don't get paid until the settlement goes through either.
Absolutely.
But the other part about it is that with this change is that it's a significant change. And remembering these guys, when the government made this decision about JobKeeper and JobSeeker, they pretty much did it on the run, because they too were in a world of unknown, going, well, we've got to do something here, and they did so. But now they've had time to adjust and reassess, and so it goes. I think you've got to give them credit. It's all very nice to be critical, but it's interesting to see how significant, like they're actually, for part-timers, are going to be cut in half that JobKeeper payment. But as I've sort of said previously, I think in my case, for example, my focus is to ensure that we're generating, and you can't control everything, but the focus is to control, not to be relying on that, but to control things so we're back to normal. And if that happens to be in August, and I can go there and say, we don't need this anymore, then that should be what you're sort of trying to chase, not, oh dear, I'm not going to get that payment. I'm sure there's going to be people in that predicament.
Yeah.
But I focus as a business owner, as I am, my focus is to ensure that we get back on track and we're doing what we normally do.
Yeah. Look, and I think the thing is, TV is, with great respect, there's a lot of pain out there. There's a lot of pain that doesn't get spoken about, and there is just so much hurt out there in business. So my next comment, I guess, I make with the greatest respect. But like anything, once you give something to someone, like a $1,500 a fortnight JobKeeper payment, once you give that to someone, when at any point in time when that gets retracted or it gets reduced, the person that was used to getting it suddenly feels like they're losing something. But I think the reality you're not losing something. And this isn't just about JobKeeper. This is pretty much in life. You got given something and it was really good and you got used to it, and far out it was a really, really good thing. And we all knew that it has to stop, or we all knew that it was going to get watered down. And that's what we're about to see over the next 3 or 4 months. But it could have been a far different story 4 months ago, where the government didn't come up with that sort of a plan, or instead of $1,500, they said it's going to be $1,000 a fortnight, or it's $500 a fortnight, or they said, guys, we're just going to cop it on the chin. So my personal opinion, I really do applaud what it is that they've done. And they've done as good as what they could have with a very short amount of time to do it. And I applaud them for what they're continuing to do, which, as we all know, at some point in time, it needs to be paid back as well. So I'm glad I don't have that job, but I really...
I don't have it at all. Hey, listen, just quickly, one of our regulars has come on board. He was busy tonight and he said he might not be around, but he is. Dino Stonehouse has just come in. He's just said, OD, an increase in supply of property stock for sale post JobKeeper reduction equals reduction in property values. Is that where we're coming from?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that I think that would be too much of a spike. So I don't think we'll actually see a reduction in property values, but it obviously relates to the demand at that time as well. So if we see an increase in supply, if people have got time up their sleeve, and what we've seen so far during this emergency period is that the banks have been very supportive for people that have had, whether it's mortgage holidays or mortgage deferments or whatever that is. If the banks were not that way and we had huge unemployment, that means that there'd be a massive influx of properties onto the market, and people are forced to sell them really quick that's definitely when we'll see a fall in property values. And if that happens in October, November, December, where people are forced into making decisions, then yeah, potentially we could see a drop in property values. But if people can make more calculated decisions, if the banks continue with their level of support, and well, yeah, their level of support for people that has got these mortgages, and don't back people into a corner where they have to make quick decisions, which means a quick sale, I think we'll actually see property values just stable. Well, not stabilise, but they'll just maintain and be consistent.
Hey, I'm glad Dino's there. Dino, I hope you're still keeping an eye on us. But Laura, she sent a question through earlier on, Laura, and I'm sorry to keep you not responding sooner, but you know what OD's like, he just loves talking. You made between the two of us, yeah. But that's why we do what we're doing. Laura asked a question, and Dino, you might be able to help us with this question. She's interested to know, the times we are at the moment, are we able to approach our bank in regards to the interest rates going down on loans? If we are locked in over a term at a higher rate, what are our options, if any, on getting that lock rate dropped down? And Dino, maybe you can come back to us with regard to that. But I would suggest, Laura, from my experience, although I'm not actively involved in finance these days, I would suggest that most definitely, if you're in some of the things you need to look at with some lending scenarios is to ensure what the penalties are. In some cases, you might be locked in with a particular loan to get out of that. And as I say, I'm not a practicing finance these days, but I still have some understanding and background in it. And of course, there are facilities in place where you need to read the small print or speak to someone, be it your bank manager or your finance broker or some of that nature, but to ensure that what you can negotiate, and certainly depending on what interest rate you are paying at the present, if it is a higher rate, and if you are paying a higher rate at the moment, really, really, truly, you should be talking to someone about it, because in the marketplace we have and have had for a while, the rates are low. So yes, Laura, we will wait for one of the experts perhaps to come back to us, but certainly it is a time and an opportunity to talk to your bank or talk to your finance broker and look at your options as far as that's concerned, without doubt. Absolutely. And we'd highly... Yes, mate.
Yeah, just on that, mate, I wonder how it works, if there's anyone that knows how it works or has some close contact with the telecommunications industry. For example, I was working with a client that is locked into a 3-year deal with their phone and internet provider. It is a business, and they're 18 months into a 3-year contract that we've been trying to, if we engage those same level of services today, the price would be around about half what it is. So we've been trying to negotiate with him and say, guys, we've been a customer for 40 years. And I won't name the name because I don't believe in that, but I will say it rhymes with Melstra. Yeah, we've been trying to, no, I won't name names, but yes, saying, hey, come on, guys,
not our style.
You've locked us in, and you know, we've got another 18 months to go at this ridiculously high rate. We've been a customer for 40 years, and we'd like to be around for, you know, at least the next 10. However, treat us good. And their response so far has been, there's a contract in place. And if we're going to talk about it, there's the old ETCs, early termination charges. So I don't know if it operates differently in the telecommunications sector from the bank sector, but I would hope for Laura's, from Laura's point of view, if she's locked into a fixed term rate, that the banks would consider renegotiating out of that fixed term.
Yep. And the other thing that needs to be, which is what we touched on last week, or not touched on, we spoke at length about, was negative equity. And, you know, that's the other thing that could impact on your ability to renegotiate your loan, because if the security, the valuation, as we talked about last week, your debt is higher than your value, then that could impact you and your ability to refinance or to have your loan changed to a lower rate. So there's a range of things you need to look at there, and we'll certainly ensure we get an expert in with regard to finance, which is our intention. And we'll discuss that further. But yeah, there are some options, but certainly I would strongly recommend you either talk to your banker or your finance broker with regard to that. But I would entertain it. Hey, listen, talking about that, and again, maybe a topic that we need to speak about when we get one of our finance gurus as a guest. But an interesting article I read again during the week that was older home buyers, and there used to be sort of a restriction to sort of 60 plus, but there was a reference there about I think it was one of the banks where they'd reduced that old category to 55, and in this article it made reference to the fact that so older home buyers, maybe first time getting the opportunity to go and buy because of rates, whatever the case may be. But in this particular article, they made reference to the fact that 55 plus, one of the lending institutions wanted to know where you stood with your superannuation. And of course, then whether you had the ability, if there was enough, for example, if you borrowed 400,000, if you had a sufficient money in your super to pay that 400 out when your time to retire came along. And it's not about what you were putting in over time. Now, as this article also emphasised, some people, self-employed people, have their business set up whereby they cash flow and all the other things they've got to do as a business owner, they don't necessarily have the resources to put money into super. They are relying on their sale of their business or something similar when they get to that point that they've had enough. And so that could impact on their ability to borrow money. So it was a very interesting article, but also very interesting with what impact that has on people in this marketplace trying to buy a home or perhaps trying to downsize and wanting to borrow money to buy that new home. Was very, very intriguing. And again, I think rather than you and I, unless you're happy to make comment, we might try and get one of the experts in the finance game to give us their thoughts and perhaps explain further what's going on with all the lending institutions in that little bubble. Thoughts?
I'll make two very, very quick comments, mate. And the first one is, wouldn't it be great to be 55 again, TV? That'd be good, wouldn't it, for you? And the second one...
You've had two cracks at me so far tonight. I'm starting to get an inferiority complex. Keep going.
I'm trying to give you compliments, but it's obviously not coming out that way. Hey, and the second thing that I'd say as well, and this should be a topic at some point in time, are we moving away from that great Australian dream? Is it that important anymore? You know, we've got to get with the times as well. And is it owning our own home, or is it owning our own home outright, or is our money better in a business or in other investments that produce a better level of return, and we can just rent? Renting's not a bad word. It used to be a bad word, but I don't think it's a bad word as much anymore. So probably a good debate for a future session. But yeah, I think that the great Australian dream may have actually shifted a bit.
Have you heard the term homes and holes? House and holes?
No.
Yeah, I funny enough, someone made reference to me about it recently, and then in an article during the week referring to, and I would suggest, I'm wondering, hello, someone's just come back, Justin Collins has come back to us and said, how easy is it to get a valuation to check your own equity level? I'm not quite sure what he means by that. What's he mean? Perhaps get your own valuation on your property to give some idea of where you stand?
Really easy. I mean, these days there's a program called RP Data, which is probably the most recognised property database so far as sales evidence and property valuations is concerned. So I don't think you can just jump on there without some sort of a subscription. But RP Data generates its own valuations based on the statistics of the area, the number of properties that have sold. They look at the size of the home, when it was built, the land size, all that sort of stuff, and they computer generate their own valuations, and then they rate them as whether they're low confidence, medium confidence, or high confidence. So it's pretty easy to do that these days, and I'm sure there's other software out there to do it as well.
Yeah. Or you can get an expert to physically do that, but yeah, why not? Simple. Hey, oh, look at that. Look, some of our viewers, they're actually communicating with each other now. They're setting up a little network between themselves.
Oh, a little bit of Tinder on Property Avenue.
Yeah, a little bit of Tinder happening. Yeah, a little bit of look, I can help you. More than happy to do that. I mean, we're going places. Hey, we made mention last week about the stimulus package and what that may do to the marketplace down the track. Supply and demand, as we say. I think we're a little bit ahead of our time, because there was an article in the paper on Monday about exactly that. So whether they were following our lead, I don't know, just a thought. And that's where I read a little reference about the house and holes, is that is WA becoming the state of house and holes? And they also made reference about negative equity, that need to be, is this stimulus package actually putting downward pressure on home values, established home values, because of the number of homes that are being built.
What's the house and holes reference though? Is that referring to houses?
So I had someone make comment to me about this house and holes a month or so ago, and I went, never heard of it. And they said, yeah, it's something that they refer to. And I went, oh, that's the first time I've heard. And then ironically, I heard. So I think what they're referring to is, and maybe I need to go and do some homework on this, but I think they're referring to vacant land, putting a house on it. Vacant land, putting a house on it. I think that's where they're coming from, rather than focusing on the established market.
So in my language, the vacant land, put a house on it, is called urban sprawl.
Yeah, well,
which is just, it's just, you've got the.
So do you want me to find out let's see if we can do some research and find out a little bit more about house and holes. And if someone's listening or watching and you've got any idea and you've heard the phrase house and holes, we would be really, really interested in your thoughts and what that all means to you. But in the meantime, I'm going to do some heavy lifting, as I do, and I'm going to check that out so that next week we'll let you know what house and holes is all about.
Yeah, and also at the same time, for whoever it is that's going to take TV up on his little offer there to go and check out house and holes, check out what nook and cranny actually means. Where's the evolution of the saying nook and cranny? Okay, nook and cranny. Oh, I've written those down, so we will inquire. You know what I mean, TV? Yeah, you know the saying. I've searched every nook and cranny. Oh, yeah. I've heard many times. Have you looked in your cranny? Don't forget. My hair's a little bit more silver than you and a few more wrinkles, but yep. Oh, you know what someone's just made comment about? Tinder? Maybe nearly holes in one. Oh, that's exactly it. That wasn't a coincidence. Wasn't a coincidence at all. I nearly got a hole in one. Mate, you may as well say I nearly hit it straight. Oh, please. Okay, let's move on. We're looking at the time, but also I reckon I've got about 11% left on my laptop. Okay, well, I'll be really quick. We're winding up, and we really appreciate the comments tonight and the questions being asked. And remember that we're on. We can now have Property Avenue WA pod on YouTube. My granddaughter said to me the other day, "Poppy, you're a businessman and you don't know where you're at with YouTube." I said, "Sweetheart, I'm fast approaching 65, not 25, be fair." 218, there was an article in the paper, and I picked up on this. A World War II pistol found in the safe by a little child in a home open. Tell me, you've been around with regard to property. Any shock horror stories you've come across in your home opens, like skeleton wardrobe or something? I've got a ripper. I've got a ripper, and it's a little bit.
I'm excited.
It might not be PG rated, but and it wasn't me though. It was a good friend of mine who's in real estate, and he told me this ripper of a story when he was doing a home open. But again, it's if there's any kids listening, tell them to go play on the road or something. Okay,
no,
so
we should be okay.
He's listed this house for sale, and he's got his first home open. And when he goes into, this is a true story, when he goes into the first home open, he's having a bit of a walk around before all the first people come to the first home open. And he goes into the bedroom, into the master bedroom, and it's a bit pretty untidy. It looks like they've just jumped up and gone, and it could be presenting a lot better. So, excuse me.
I thought where this is going. Keep going.
So in his wisdom, he decides that he's going to straighten up the bed, and he grabs the doona and gives it a bit of a flick and tries to pull it over. And out of nowhere, this pink dildo goes flying across the bedroom, and because he didn't know it was there, obviously, and it goes flying across the bedroom and heads over like towards the ensuite. And he goes, "Oh my God, what am I going to do now? There's going to be people here in a couple of minutes." So he walks over to it because he doesn't want this vibrator sitting on the floor. So he walks over to it, and he thought, well, I don't want to pick it up. So he kicked it under the bed just to keep it out of view. Meanwhile, the first number of couples and everything come into the home open and all that, and it's absolutely fine. So half an hour gave over, a few people through the home open, that was all good. And then he had to close up the home. And then he thought, oh my God, well, like, what am I going to do now? Because if they come back and see the bed made up and they see this vibrator under the bed, they're going to know that I've seen it. And then that's going to be a bit of an awkward conversation. So I'm pretty sure the story ended that he basically had to find a way to try and reset the room as if it was, so that there didn't need to be a conversation at all. But I just pictured this pink vibrator just flying across the room when he's trying to do the right thing. And I think his face turned quite pink as well in trying to work out what to do. And he just...
that's like a Faulty Towers story, isn't it, really? Faulty Towers.
Yeah, I think that's a show back at your time. That's about right.
Oh, yeah, it was. Great show. Hey, House and Holes, chronicling the risk to Australia's miracle economy. That's what my little...
Right. So House, is that like the Great Australian Dream? And Holes, is that a reference to the mining sector?
We will check it out. Oh, now I'm on. Yes. Now I'm starting. Yep. Let's go and, as I said, we're going to do some homework. Nooks and Cranny and House and Holes. I reckon you're onto it. I think that's exactly where it's all coming from. Quick question, and we'll wind it up. Been fabulous to talk again, and we've had some great coverage and some good questions. I've got your if question for tonight. If you could choose one food that you had to have for the rest of your life, what would you choose?
Gnocchi from Il Chow in Applecross.
Oh, really?
Could live on that. The most authentic Italian, just the local average decor, but just amazing authentic Italian food. And yeah, absolutely, the gnocchi from Il Chow in Applecross.
Well, can I give you mine? I cooked a couple of lamb shanks on the slow cooker on the weekend, and mate, I reckon they came out so good, and I only had them to myself, which was really good. I reckon I could have those on a more regular basis, certainly if there was only one food left. That was more than enough, full of veggies, full of good meat, and full of magic sauce.
Why did you have them? Why did you have it by yourself?
Because my little wife, my little princess, had gone back to Perth.
Oh, right. Okay. So this is you. This is you rating your own cooking. You're rating your own cooking.
Well, I could only rate it, but it was me. But what I'm saying is that if I had a choice that was that good, I reckon that's what my choice would be. Anyway, we've got to finish up. Been an absolute pleasure. For those that were listening, thank you so much for being a part of it. We really, 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 really enjoyed it. Oh, Laura said definitely pasta. She would. Laura, I'm probably with you, to be honest. Gnocchi is fine, but pasta, I'm with you. I'm a big pasta man. But look, thanks everybody for joining us. It's been fabulous. Next week, we're hoping, the plan is, OD and I will be doing our thing, but we have our guest, and the intention is to get someone to cover insurance. And obviously, the topic of the month at the moment, or in the current climate, is building. And so we're going to get hopefully someone to come and talk to us about insurance for owner builder and insurance for getting a registered builder build your home, and all things associated with building property. So next week, 7:45, you can get hold of us on YouTube, Property Avenue WA YouTube channel, or you can get us on our Champion Based Settlements Facebook page. Thanks a million for playing a part. OD, fabulous to catch up, mate. Really enjoyed it. And we look forward to having some fun again next week. Thanks a million, folks. Take care, and go the Cats.